Do you ever think about what you think about? Because if you did, and if you took control of that, you could alter the direction of your entire life. Most people never take the time to take an inventory about their thoughts. Yet our thoughts control our world. Our thoughts are like magnets. They literally draw towards us that which we obsess about. And so most people never take the time to analyze what they think about. The most successful people I know are the most self-aware, meaning they're aware of what they do and they're also aware of what they think. They're aware of how they're perceived. So today's message is about thinking. So here's some stats you need to know. Number one is, average person, you and I, have about 75,000 thoughts a day rattling around in this thing we call our brains and our minds. 75,000 of them. The crazy thing is 91% of those thoughts are identical to the previous day and are identical to the day before that and the day before that and the day before that. And then we wonder why our life seems to repeat itself over and over again. So really the difference in our life, if we have 75,000 thoughts a day, here's the crazy thing, 91% of them are exactly the same. The separation in our life is in those 9% of their thoughts, because remember this, these magnets are pretty powerful. That's why I'm always saying that your obsessions become your possessions, because they do. You draw into your life exactly what it is you think about. It's a physical reality that you attract to yourself what you think about. So the difference in our life is 9% of our thoughts. That's why people say all the time the difference between winning and losing is so small, it's almost too scary to talk about. And really, we've identified what it is. It's 9% of what we think about alters the direction of our life. So what I'm here to tell you today is you've got to hone in and get aware of what you think about and then alter those 9% of the thoughts that are variable on a daily basis to serve you. Because if you don't, these thoughts become like viruses. They're viruses in our minds. What happens in a computer when it gets a virus? It slows down. It becomes sluggish. It doesn't function at its optimal level. Same thing with our thinking. If we don't get those 9% of our thoughts to serve us, our lives go in a completely different direction. So remember this, you don't see things in your life as they are. You see things in life as you are. And so the more you alter you, the more you begin to see things differently. What's amazing about this is we control who we are by what we think about. Think about this just for a second. Wherever you're sitting watching this, the chair that you're sitting in, if you're sitting in a chair, if you're driving in a car and you're listening to this, that seat you're in started in someone's mind as a thought, right? Every detail of it, the fabric, the cushions, the way it's structured, every single piece of that started in someone's mind as a thought and then became a reality by putting out the pieces together. See, everything in life is that way as well. It always begins with a thought. When we think a new thought, here's what literally happens. Thinking a new thought literally opens a space up in our minds, in our lives, that never existed before prior to having that thought. It's like a brand new space you've created just by thinking it. And what happens is your unconscious and subconscious mind goes to work on filling in that space with the people, places, resources, and things to fill it up like a room and an architect would, to fill up that space and fully furnish it. That's the power of how we think. So literally everything that exists started as a thought in someone's mind and then became a material matter. And so you've got to begin to think about the things you want to materialize in your life on a regular basis and think about it repetitiously. Literally the things that we obsess about become the things that we possess in our lives. Most people, those variable 9% of the thoughts is the new thing they're worried about, the new fear they have, the new response to an email they have to make, and they never dictate the terms. Remember this, your mind is a weapon. And you got to begin to use it and pick that weapon up and control it. Most people are out of control with their mind. They don't point it at something. They let the world point it and they misfire all the time. So today, I want you to pick up that weapon that is your mind and begin to point it at the things you want, knowing that it's a magnet that draws to you the things in your life that you would most like to have or that you would most not like to have. And that's where most people make the mistakes in their life. So today I want you to begin with first taking an inventory of the thoughts you have that don't serve you. And I want you to write them down. And I want you to eliminate them. Step one, write down the thoughts that don't serve you and eliminate them. How do I eliminate them? By replacement. You eliminate them with replacement by thinking a new thought. It's as simple as saying, what thought would I need to have that would serve me to get this goal or dream or vision that I have? And get that thought, write it down, repeat it over and over and over and over again. Because there's a part of our brain called the reticular activating system. And it's the filter that we see the entire world through. I talk about it a great deal in my book, Max Out Your Life. You can click the link here. There's a little bit of the description in the bio as well, or go to maxoutbook.com. You can get the book or go to Amazon. But I talk about this in the book. The reticular activating system is the filter through which you see the entire world. It's powerful. And so that's why it filters out all the things in your life that aren't important to you so that you can be sane. You don't feel the blood rushing through your left ear. You you're not conscious of your breathing. A million stimulus would hit you. If you couldn't filter things out, you'd go crazy. This allows you to only filter into your consciousness what is most important to you. And what's most important to you is what you think about all the time. And it creates a filter. For example, that's why if something's important to you, the reticular activator reveals it to you through vision, sound, touch, you name it. And so, for example, you ever buy a new car, you've got a new, blue Honda car. All of a sudden, don't you see that car everywhere? It's on the third, it could be 3 lanes over, other side of the freeway. You see blue Hondas all of a sudden everywhere. They were already all over the road. Why do you see them all of a sudden? You ever notice that before? Because that's become important to you because it's part of your reticular activating system now. So what if you could program your mind that the blue Hondas of your life are your goals, your dreams, and your visions? And the way we do that is repeated thinking, looking at our goals, visualizing them, seeing them over and over again. So let me give you a couple tips to do that. Number one, your smartphone you check about 400 times a day. 400. The most important thing you could do is on your screensaver program the thoughts that would serve you, the goals that would serve you. That gives you 400 triggers a day. Every time you pick up this phone, you're looking at your blue Hondas. You're looking at what's most important to you. And what happens is when you put that down, the RAS begins unconsciously to help filter into your existence the people, the places, the conversations, the things that will help you materialize that space you've created with the thought. It fills it with the furniture of your life, the furniture, the people, places, and things. So the second thing is to program your phone with your goals and dreams. That's 400 triggers a day to begin to alter those 9% of your thoughts. That's my challenge to you. As you program that RAS, what's going to begin to happen is you'll literally be sitting in a restaurant 3 or 4 tables over as you're in a conversation. Have you ever had this happen? You just can't help but hear somebody in that restaurant 3 tables over. You shouldn't be able to hear them, that you do. And sometimes it almost drives you crazy, doesn't it? Like, I can't get these people out of my head. Why is it sometimes you can hear these conversations in a room or on an airplane away from you, and other times you can't? Because somehow that conversation became important to you, and the RAS filters it into you auditory through your hearing, and you begin to hear it. When you're obsessed with what you want, you begin to hear those conversations. When you're not obsessed, you miss them. Or you'll see something that you wouldn't see. You'll see the prospect. You'll see the situation. You'll see the opportunity. It's literally reveals you. It's almost like the Matrix. It changes our world. This is the power of what we think about. It's the most misunderstood thing in the world. It's literally taking control of your thoughts and pointing it at your life and your goals and your dreams as a weapon to magnetize towards you what you want. So my challenge to you is, number one, get control and be aware of the thoughts that don't serve you and eliminate them by replacement with the thoughts that do serve you. These thoughts are the things that you want in your life. We do that by repetitious thinking, and we do that by programming them in our phone, having some sort of vision board up in our lives. You can put your goals on your mirror in your bathroom, but you've always heard these things before, but you've never understood why they work, so most people don't do it. It works because it reprograms that filter in your mind to begin to find those things in your life. If you don't take control of them and you think you're just going to work your way into it, you will work yet another year, another month, another decade, and that life's going to look an awful lot the same because we become what we think about. And if we don't alter those 9%, our life ends up looking exactly the same. So my challenge to you is to program your RAS, to write those goals down, and to repetitiously program them into your thinking as much as you can. I used to walk this beach as a kid and say, this is where I want to live someday. I knew exactly what beach, I knew exactly the area, and the more my brain went to work on that specific thought, that specific place, the more likely it was to happen. So remember this, the more specific you are with your thinking, the more intentional you are with the thoughts, the higher the probability of it happening, and your brain can go to work, that RAS can go to work on finding the people, places, things, and resources to fill in that very specific thought that you have. So don't be general, be specific, and repeat it over and over and over again to yourself, and you got a whole lot more likelihood of happening. The other thing is this, your brain likes to gravitate towards what it's most familiar with. The brain loves familiar things, okay? So the more you think about something, the more you place yourself on that beach, in that house, with that amount of money, with that body, the more repetitive it is that you place yourself in those things, those places, and those situations. The more your brain becomes familiar with it, the more it gravitates towards it. You can't think about it once. It's the repetition over and over again. Your brain begins to think, oh, I belong here. We belong here. You actually eventually convince yourself literally that you belong in your dreams by the repetitive and specific thinking and visions of them over and over again. One thing to be conscious of is the RAS doesn't reveal to you necessarily what you need necessarily, because what you need has always been there. What it does is it opens you up to seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting the things that you need in order to attract them into your life. The last part of the steps that I want to share with you is that you've got to control the beginning and the end of your day with your thinking. And so one of the first things you need to do when you wake up, after you do your stretching, your prayer, your meditation, whatever it is to take a 5-minute window and control your thinking, whether you after your meditation, your prayer, whatever it is, but you take a 5-minute window and you visually see your goals and dreams. Picture them as videos in your mind. Picture them as you possessing them and see them written down on a sheet of paper. This will begin to control your mind for the day. And then at the very end of the day, what I do, one of the last things I do after my prayer, when I'm laying in bed at night, is I read through my goals and my dreams, I picture them, and I allow my RAS and my subconscious mind to go to work on them. When I get my sleep, it's going to work on revealing to me, it's playing back the video, believe it or not, of my day in my mind, and it is revealing to me the things that I may have missed in that day that could bring those things into my reality, and it helps me wake up ready to get them as well. So if you'll do that, where you wake up, you go to bed, and when you check your phone, you are going to alter those 9% of your thoughts. These are 3 key steps on changing the way you think, and we know if we can change the way we think, we change the 9% of our thoughts, we change what we obsess about, we begin to possess them. That thought opens up a new space that didn't exist before, just like that chair you're sitting in, and we'll begin to create those things in our lives. Use these 3 steps to change your thinking, and I know if we stack that up over a day, a week, a month, 3 or 4 years, and a decade, the direction of your life is completely different. You see yourself living like this.
Hey, it's Ed Mylett. I just wanted to thank you for being here, and I would ask you to please subscribe to the show. If you just click the subscribe button here, I would really appreciate it. It helps the show grow so we can get even more successful guests on the program to help you. At the same time, if you're subscribed, you're going to get access to the programs before anybody else in the world gets access to them. So if you would, click subscribe right here. Thanks so much. Today we're going to talk a little bit about suffering and comfort. And many years ago, my friend Wayne Dyer shared a story with me, and I tell it a little bit different, and I use it for a different purpose than him. But I want to tell you the story about the 4 philanthropists. And so many, many years ago, there was this war going on in this village. And in the village, the people that lived there lost the war, and all of the men in the village were imprisoned. And the prison was actually in the village. And so imagine all of the husbands and brothers and sons were imprisoned in the very community that they grew up in. And there were these philanthropists, there were 4 of them, that all wanted to come along and live their destiny, live their purpose, and make a difference in the world. And so one of the first philanthropists came along and found out that all these men were sleeping in very uncomfortable conditions, and there was, they were sleeping on rocks. There weren't adequate mattresses, and there wasn't great pillows or anything like that. So he said, I'm a very wealthy man, and I'd like to help these men in the prison suffer in a little bit more comfort, to give them some comfort in their suffering. And so I'd like to donate pillows and mattresses so that they could sleep comfortably. And the prison agreed, and he donated all the mattresses and the pillows so that these men could sleep in some comfort. And he felt great. He thought like he fulfilled his purpose and his destiny in life and made a difference for these men. The second philanthropist came along and found out that the men were bathing in terribly dirty water and were drinking this water and were becoming, malnourished and were dehydrated because they couldn't keep the water down. And he said, listen, I would like to donate clean water so that these men can have a little bit more comfort in their suffering. And so the prison agreed, and he donated clean water to the prison. And he felt great about the fact that he felt like I've fulfilled a purpose, I've fulfilled my destiny, I've made a difference in these people's lives. The third philanthropist found out, he lived in town, he was a farmer, and he found out these poor men that were once in the community that were now living right there in this prison were eating terrible food. It didn't taste good, it was unhealthy, it had some maggots in it from time to time. And he went to the prison and said, listen, I own a farm. I grow fresh food. I would love to be able to donate the meat and the eggs and the produce and the vegetables to these men that are in prison just to give them some more comfort. And the prison agreed and allowed them to donate the food. And this man donated the food, and now the men were eating healthy food that nourished them, that tasted good. And now he felt great about the difference that he made and felt like, I fulfilled my destiny as a person. But then the 4th philanthropist came along. And the 4th philanthropist, he was a saint. And the 4th philanthropist did something very interesting in the prison. He went and got the keys. And the gift he gave to the prisoners is he came along and he had the keys to unlock them from the prison he was in. And he unlocked it. and all the prisoners were released from the prison and no longer suffered at all. He fulfilled his destiny. He fulfilled his purpose. And I share this story with you because, in my opinion, so many people are suffering in comfort, meaning they're constantly trying to add things, even though they're suffering in their life. They do things to feel more comfort in their suffering rather than alleviate their suffering, rather than what I'd like to think that my show or myself, or what I'm going to share with you right now, I have the keys to unlock you from the prison that you live in, the prison of our minds, the prison of the emotions we don't want to feel, the prison of feeling like we're less, the prison of feeling like my life doesn't matter, the prison of not having a sense of direction, the prison of feeling invisible, the prison of always beating ourselves up about our previous sins or mistakes or setbacks or failures, the prison of being worried about what other people think about us. And so many of you and so many of us in our life stay in this prison that's in our minds. And the entire time, all we're trying to do is, man, if we could just sleep a little bit better, if I could feel a little bit better, if I could eat a little bit better, if I drove a little bit better car, if I had a little bit cooler friends, then my suffering, I'd have more comfort in my suffering. And there's this thing in our culture right now where so many of us, all we're really trying to do is have a little bit more comfort, but we're suffering. And I believe suffering comes from a place in our life where we're not pursuing our dreams. We're not pursuing our potential. We're not giving ourselves the gift of what's already within us, which is love and bliss and peace. And we're pursuing these things. We're pursuing that car, that truck, that relationship, that amount of money, that title, that prestige, that like on social, that following. So that maybe as we're suffering, we feel a little bit more comfort. There's these moments of happiness, moments of bliss, moments where we feel okay. But we live in a prison of our own making in our minds. And I believe there are keys to just simply the simple process of unlocking the key and walking out of that prison, and you never need to live in it again. And that's really what my show's all about. See, the prison is living in fear. The prison is, what are people going to think about me? The prison is living someone else's dream. So many of us right now are pursuing something or in a career that we didn't even really choose. Our parents chose it, or people thought we'd be good at it, or we studied it in college and so we're stuck in it, or we've started a business and we're running it and it was originally our dream, but we just suffer every day in this dream that's probably right now, if we checked in and started over, is no longer our dream. How many of you right now, as you're driving in your car or running on the treadmill or watching this on YouTube, relate where you're like, I am suffering. I'm in this prison that it's my making. It was my dream I no longer have. It was my parents' dream that I'm living. It's a job that I know I don't want to do. It's emotions every day I don't want to feel, but that I have create this pattern of feeling these emotions. See, in our lives, we have these emotions we're going to get on a regular basis. No matter what the conditions are of our life, there's 5 or 6 emotions we're always going to go get. So if our addicted emotions are pain, anxiety, worry, suffering, anger, depression, angst, nothingness, we're going to find a way in our life in a given week, no matter what the conditions are, to get back into that prison of those emotions. Don't you? Don't we? We find a way to do it because we're addicted to that pattern of the emotions. And most people, listen to me, will live their entire life and get to the end of their life and only at the end of their life realize, I suffered in comfort and I could have ended my suffering at any point. I held the keys. God held the keys the entire time. I could have simply unlocked the gate. I could have unlocked the door and walked right out. And I believe that door, those keys, are the following things. That it's your faith. It's connecting, if you don't have one, connecting to something you believe in that's bigger than you. In my case, you all know that I'm a Christian, but whatever faith it is that you choose, that faith is a pathway. It's part of the keys of getting out of the prison. It's the keys of getting out of the prison. Part of the keys is finding a dream that's our current dream, not our past dream, not our parents' dream, not our friend's dream, but our dream right now. Ask yourself a question, check in. Am I now living in a prison of my own creation? It was a job I chose I don't want anymore. It's a degree I'm pursuing I'm not interested in. It's a business I started that now that I've done it, it's not for me, but I'm still in it and I'm suffering in it. but I get a little bit more comfort with a little bit more money. I go to a concert. I've got good friends. Whatever the thing is you do, I get a good bottle of wine on the weekend. Whatever you do, you smoke weed, whatever your thing is, all you're doing is trying to just be a little bit more comfortable, and you're suffering. I believe the key out of that prison is to pursue something that's your purpose and your passion and your calling and that your heart tells you to do. I also believe it's pursuing something that takes advantage of your natural skills and abilities. The prison can be what other people think about us. The prison can also be oftentimes holding our past failures and mistakes like a weapon, almost like most of us hold this gun to our head regularly, and we remind ourselves of our mistakes, of our sins, of our past, and we believe those things disqualify us. I believe the other way out of that prison is to accept your worth leaving the prison, to accept you weren't born to be in that prison. I believe that. To chase your purpose and your dreams, to live your life on your own terms. See, you hold the keys to this. And it's almost like this. In life, Wayne said this to me one time, in life, life is like this massive 100-room mansion with all these experiences and things we could be seeing and doing and trying and learning and expanding. And many of these things may not even be a business. It might just be a hobby. It might be a pursuit. It might be an interest. It might be a curiosity of yours. These are the pathways, curiosity and chasing that curiosity and learning something new and trying new things and experiencing something different, giving everything. See, total freedom in life, total freedom being out of the prison is a total commitment to something. People think, well, if I get into a totally committed relationship, I lose my freedom. Nothing could be further from the truth. Total commitment gives you freedom. Well, if I get totally committed to my business, man, I'm going to lose the freedom. Not true. Total commitment is the keys out of the prison. Half commitments, halfway committed to a relationship, halfway committed to a business, halfway loving what you do. That's the prison. That's the lack of freedom. Total freedom is actually total commitment, because once you've totally committed, now you're free to create. Now the options are whatever you want them to be in your life. And so I'm a huge believer that these keys, those are the pathways out of the prison in our minds. Those are the prisons out of our life. See, Wayne said to me, it's like life is like this 100-room mansion. And we're born into it, and we get into this, we've chose this one career or this one relationship, and we spend the majority of our life in that one room in a 100-room mansion. Think about that for a minute. All the different experiences, things you could be learning, seeing, and doing in your life. But you spend almost every day, most of us, in the same room, in the same life, in the same mansion of life, with the same people doing the same things, suffering, and just a little bit more comfort. And you can dress that room up all you want. You can dress it up all you want. You can have the best blankets, the best food, the best drinks, but you're still suffering. You can leave that room anytime you want. There's hundreds of other rooms. In fact, there's hundreds of other mansions that have hundreds of other rooms all over the world. There's a big world for you to experience. My challenge for you today, and that pathway out of there, my challenge for you today is to take the keys right now. Take those keys and open the door and at least mentally step out for a minute and say, I can end my suffering by pursuing my passion, by giving myself the gift of my faith, by giving myself the gift of my happiness and my bliss, by only being around people who love me and believe in me and treat me the way I'm worthy of being treated. I'm going to begin to treat myself the way I'm worthy of being treated. I'm going to regularly audit my life and take a look at what my dream is now, not what my dream was when I was 18 or 13 or 25 or whatever your age was. At some point, what's your dream now? If you could dream again now, if you could have the emotions you wanted now, if you could pursue your purpose now, what would it be? Those are the keys out of your prison. You were not born to suffer in comfort. You were born to do something great with your life. You were born to leave this prison. You were born to do something awesome, to contribute to the lives of other people. And your past does not disqualify you. And just because you've been in this prison or in this one room, in this 100-room mansion, and that one mansion does not mean that you need to live there the rest of your life. At any point, you can make a decision to step right out of that place and begin to create again. And by the way, just the visual picture of stepping out right now if you gave yourself this gift. I'm going to step out. I'm going to begin to create. I'm going to begin to learn. I'm going to begin to grow. I'm going to begin to pursue my passion. I'm not going to begin to just do the same things that cause me to have a little bit more comfort in my suffering. I want to live blissfully. I want to live greatly. I want to do something awesome with my life. I want to make my dreams come true. At any point, you're one decision away from doing that. And today, I just want to simply tell you that I believe my content, my podcast, the pursuit of your potential and your dreams, and you being that fourth philanthropist for you. You be that philanthropist for you. You be that saint for you. And those pathways, again, are your faith, are your purpose, are your dreams, is your courage to change your life, is your courage to say, I'm unlocking the keys. I'm stepping out a new person. And maybe it's the same career. Maybe it's the same career, but it's a different version of you doing it. It's a more positive, optimistic, confident you doing it. That the suffering isn't the career. The suffering isn't the business. It's the person in the business. It's the person who every day thinks, I've got to worry and be frustrated and be angry and be concerned, and I've got to suffer in order to make this work. There's a big difference between pain and suffering. Stay with me. Pain is mandatory in getting somewhere in life. Pain is a primer. Pain teaches us. Pain is temporary. All pain is temporary. You can survive temporary pain. On the other side of that pain, you meet another version of yourself. I want to be very clear about that. I'm not going to tell you that pursuing your dream, pursuing your life, and life in general doesn't involve pain, because it does. And there's nothing wrong with that. We learn from our pain, and it's temporary. Suffering, however, is optional. Suffering is different than pain. Suffering is living in that prison in your mind. Suffering is being with someone that doesn't love you and treat you the right way. Suffering is chasing a dream that's no longer your dream. Suffering is chasing no dream and building someone else's dream at a job when that's not what you want. Suffering is not pursuing your interest and your curiosities and your hobbies. Suffering is not being connected to your faith. Those are all things we choose. So pain, that's part of life. That's almost mandatory to pursuing something great. Pain is what makes pleasure feel so good. There's nothing wrong with having pain in our lives, because when we get pleasure, it feels 1,000 times better. That contrast, that duality, that dichotomy is one of the beautiful things of life. So pain is going to be there, but suffering is of our choosing. And so many people choose to keep suffering in more and more comfort. And my challenge to you today is to no longer do that, and to pursue your dreams, to pursue your potential, to unlock the keys of the prison you've been living in, and start to live freely again.
So let's talk about some basic stuff today first, lay the foundation. Nothing with you is basic, but what is the power of thought? Because we talk about this all the time. This in personal development today, everyone's talking about, you got to control your thoughts and control your habits and all these things. And there's a baseline message about that. But you're the best in the world at explaining exactly why this is so important. So give us some background there.
Yeah, I think, if everything starts with a thought. I mean, everything that you do in your life, you have to have a thought before you initiate an action, right? So if you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, like any great leader in history understands that, the first thing you have to do is you have to decide, are you going to be defined by a vision of the future, or are you going to live by the memories of the past? So, I'll give you an example. Most people wake up in the morning, and your brain is a record of the past. It's an artifact of everything you've learned and experienced to this moment, right? It's a memory bank. So most people wake up in the morning and they start thinking about their problems, and those problems are connected to certain people and things at certain times and places. And the moment they start turning on those circuits, those memories are actually causing them to think in the past. Every single one of those memories has an emotion associated with them, and emotions are the end product of past experiences. So then the moment they recall the event, or they recall some problem in their life, they start feeling unhappy, they start feeling discouraged, they start feeling anxious. Now, thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body, and how you think and how you feel creates your state of being. So we could say then, most people's entire state of being when they start their day is in the familiar past. Well, if you live in the familiar past, then it makes sense you're going to create the predictable future. So what happens for most people is they get stuck in their biology. So think about this. Your body is your unconscious mind. It doesn't know the difference between an experience in your life that creates an emotion and an emotion that you can create by thought alone. So if you're living by the same emotion every single day, and those emotions are influencing your thoughts, and you can't think greater than how you feel, or feelings have become the means of thinking, you're thinking in the past. Your lens of the future is going to be colored by the past, so you can't see possibilities. So most people like to wait for crisis or disease or diagnosis before they wake up enough to see. Well, the challenge is that biology tends to be redundant. So if you keep thinking the same thoughts, and those thoughts begin to fire certain circuits in your brain, the nerve cells that fire together wire together, so all of a sudden you start getting hardwired, and those are the thoughts that you can think the easiest. At the same time, those thoughts produce chemicals called emotions, and the next thing you know, your body gets accustomed to living by the same emotions, and it could be guilt, it could be unhappiness, it could be pain, but at least it's familiar to you, at least you can predict it. So some people would rather cling to the familiar than take a chance in possibility. So for most people then, they say, well, I don't really see how my thoughts have anything to do with my destiny. Well, that's because 95% of those thoughts are subconscious programs, right? So you're not even conscious that you think those thoughts. So the first step to change is starting to think about what you've been thinking about and change it. And then when you begin to observe those thoughts, you're no longer the program, you're the consciousness observing the program.
Just simply by being an observer of your thoughts.
Right. So most people, though, when you do that, when you decide to really take a look, it's like lighting a match in a dark place. So you feel uncomfortable. So it's easier to turn on your TV, it's easier to play with your cell phone, to distract yourself from those feelings. Well, when you understand that change really requires becoming uncomfortable to a certain degree, and that's normal, that you're leaving the known and you're stepping into the unknown, then it begs the question, what thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? Because your attention on those thoughts begins to reorganize circuitry, remold the brain.
So, I love this, by the way. How do you flip that to your advantage? So meditation is really means to become familiar with, correct? So we're going to talk a little bit about meditation as we go forward here in a second. But if it is true that your body is your unconscious mind, which I didn't know that, and it is true that it does not know the difference between a real event or an imagined event, can't you really use that to your advantage, though?
Of course. So let's talk about that. Because this is because you do this really well. Because most people are waiting for their life to change, so they can feel gratitude, to feel abundance, to feel whole. You know, that's the old model of cause and effect. You know, so if you're living with emptiness, you're living with lack, you're living with pain, most people have been conditioned that something out there has to take away this emptiness or feeling inside of them. But if you believe that you're creating your life and you're living by lack, well, lack isn't going to create abundance, right? So then it makes sense then that you don't really actually create wealth, you generate wealth, you generate abundance. So the moment you start teaching your body emotionally what that future is going to feel like before it's made manifest, well, your body as the unconscious mind believes it's living in that future in the present moment. Now, it's a scientific fact that it's the environment that signals the gene, okay? The end product from an experience in the environment is an emotion. So when you begin to embrace an elevated emotion, you're beginning to signal the gene ahead of the environment. What's the importance of that? Well, genes make proteins, and proteins are responsible for the structure and the function of your body. And the expression of proteins is the expression of life. So by you creating an elevated emotion and teaching your body what that future will feel like before it's made manifest, your body's starting to live in that future reality in the present moment. Now here's the key. If you were able to become familiar with gratitude, become familiar with wholeness, become familiar with abundance, to become familiar with freedom, and you're able to generate those chemicals every single day, more than likely you would be walking around feeling like your future has already happened, and you would no longer be looking for it to happen. You would already feel like it has happened. Now, what is the importance of that? Well, you're literally becoming somebody else. So you're leaving your lack, you're leaving your guilt, you're leaving your emptiness behind.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. So you talk about, I want to stay in here for a minute because I know people right now are going, oh my gosh. And I'm doing that right now too. So now we get into stuff that just benefits me. One of my favorite things you say is that, and it's a general thing, but I want to move into how you become this. So you say often that in order to change your personal reality, you must change your personality. But I think also that people maybe aren't aware of how that personality was formed. And we've started to go down that road, but I want to keep going for a minute.
Sure.
And so you talk often about how a mood over time can end up turning into a personality of sorts. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, let's talk about it in two ways, okay? So your personality, literally, Ed, is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. And how you think, how you act, and how you feel is your personality, and your personality is intimately connected to your personal reality, your life. So then if you want to change your life, your personal reality, you got to change your personality. And here we go again. You got to start becoming conscious of your unconscious thoughts. You got to start noticing how you act, how you speak. You got to pay attention to how you're feeling. Some people would live in guilt their whole entire life and don't even know it's guilt because at least it feels like them. So then when you start doing that, you begin to objectify your subjective self. So then when you begin to make small changes, back to thought, a new thought should lead to a new choice. A new choice should lead to a new behavior. A new behavior should create a new experience, and a new experience should create a new emotion.
Yes.
And that new emotion is teaching your body chemically to understand what your mind has intellectually understood. Now your body is embodying the truth, right? So then the new emotion should inspire new thoughts, and that's called evolution. So how do we get stuck? It's really simple. The stronger the emotion you feel from some event in your life, be it a betrayal or a trauma or whatever, the more altered you feel inside of you, the more you pay attention to the cause outside of you. So the brain takes a snapshot. It freezes an image and embosses that pattern neurologically in the brain, and that's called a memory. So we create long-term memories from strong emotional events, okay?
So is that true? That I just want to understand. Maybe the larger the event in terms of its emotion to you, the stronger of a hold it has over you?
Yeah, well, the more it's embossed in your biology.
Okay.
So certain people have a strong experience in their life, and it catches all of the brain's attention. So now they think neurologically within the circuits of the past experience, and they feel chemically within the boundaries of those emotions. And so how you think and how you feel creates a state of being. Now here's the problem. That if you don't know how to mediate or control your emotional reaction to that event, and you keep that refractory period of chemicals going on for extended periods of time, so that the event produces a chemical change, and the body needs to return back to homeostasis or balance. But if it can't, then the elongation of that emotional reaction for weeks, say, for days or weeks, is called a mood. So you say, Ed, what's wrong with you? I'm in a mood. Why are you in a mood? Well, this thing happened to me 5 days ago, and I'm having one long emotional reaction. So then what you do is you keep telling the story about it, keep firing and wiring the same circuits, and you keep conditioning the body into the past. So then you wake up in the morning, you look for the emotion. So then now, all of a sudden, you keep it lingering for weeks or months. That's called the temperament. Well, why is he so angry? I don't know. Let's ask him. Why are you so angry? Well, this thing happened to me 8 months ago. I'm having one long emotional reaction. I'm memorizing my emotions. You keep it going on for years on end. That's called a personality trait. So then a person then is memorizing themselves by living in the past. And so then you say to them, well, tell me the story. Now, the latest research on memory says that 50% of what we talk about in our past isn't even the truth. So we make stuff up about the past. In other words, people are reliving a life that they didn't even have just to reaffirm that they can't change, right? So then what's the significance of this? Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. Period. So then the stronger the emotion that you have to some problem or condition or person in your life, the more you're paying attention to them. So they captured your attention. So you're giving your power away to that person, right? Because they're capturing your attention. So then there's an energetic connection to every person, everything in your past, present reality has your energy connected to it. So now, this is the significance. When a person really decides to be defined by a vision of the future instead of the memory of the past, the hardest part about it is all of a sudden becoming conscious and not making the same unconscious choice. So then, if you lower the volume to your frustration, to your hatred, to your anger, if you truly knew how to do that, if you lowered the volume to that emotion, you would take your attention off that person, which means you would begin to break those energetic bonds, and now you're taking your power back. You're calling energy back to you, and we've measured this, and all of a sudden it builds this bigger electromagnetic field around the person's body. That's energy to heal. That's energy to create a new future with, right? And then if you didn't want to lower the volume to the emotion, then just take your attention off the person. And every time you take your attention off the person, if you became conscious of that, you wouldn't feel the emotion. Now the body, though, has been addicted to that emotion because you're using that person to reaffirm your addiction to hatred or frustration. And if that person died, you'd find another one. So then here you go now. So now you're in a position now where you begin to lower the volume to that emotion, and the body's going, wait a second, you've been doing this for the last 20 years, and all of a sudden you're just going to stop hating? And the body says, well, I've been conditioned this way, and conditioning is based on the past. So when the body feels the lack of that emotion, just like a drug addict, it says, hey, you're off schedule here. So now the body starts influencing the mind to think about experiences that are embossed in the brain that are based on that emotion. So the emotion now is causing you to think in the past. If we teach a person then how to trade that frustration or that hatred for an elevated emotion, and they'll say, yeah, but you know, it was my ex's fault, or I got betrayed by my partner in business. Yeah, we know that. Okay, so let's take your partner in business or take your ex, let's duct tape them, put them in a cannon and shoot them to the moon. Now what are you going to do? Sooner or later, you got to reckon with yourself and change, right? So then teach a person then how to trade that emotion for an elevated emotion. Now,
trade the emotion for an elevated emotion.
Right. So you're going to give that up, and you're going to practice feeling gratitude, as an example.
Yes.
And the person says, well, I can't feel gratitude. And I say, absolutely you can, because you don't practice feeling it. You practice spending most of your time feeling hatred and frustration. So now it's going to take a little time to cause that heart of you to bloom, or your heart of yours to bloom. Once they're able to feel even the smallest measure of gratitude, where they start feeling appreciation, thankfulness, gratitude, it's emotional signature. When you get something, when you're receiving something, when something has happened to you, or when something is happening to you, you say thank you because you're receiving something. So the emotional signature of gratitude means the event has already happened, or it's happening to you. So the moment you open your heart and you feel gratitude, well, that emotion then is telling the body that the experience has already occurred. And the thought then can make it into the body because it's consistent with the thought. So now you're beginning to program the autonomic nervous system into a very specific destiny. You got to maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day, independent of the conditions in your outer environment, independent of your body's cravings of those emotions and habituations, and independent from time. And if you can, get ready, because something weird or unusual, some synchronicity, some coincidence, some opportunity is going to land in your lap. And you didn't have to go and get it.
Yes.
It came to you. Now you're the vortex of creation. So if you say to me, well, I was feeling gratitude, but then there was traffic, or my coworker sent me a nasty email, then I would say, oh my God, you mean you're allowing your environment, your outer environment, to control how you feel and think? You're back to the unconscious program that you're the victim to your life.
You got it.
But when you start producing those outcomes in your life, you're going to pay attention to what you did inside of you, and you're going to believe more that you're the creator of your life and less of the victim of your life.
That is so unbelievable, the way that I've never heard anybody ever say it like that over, because I've watched people who's, this person's caused this insecurity in their life. And even when they remove the person, what they'll do is, okay, now I'm going to feel gratitude, what you just said, but their body is still addicted to that emotion, and they go seek other references to get them that emotion again. So the first thing you said that I love, that I've not heard before, is one is acknowledge when that addiction rears its head again, just by acknowledging it. The second thing that really nobody talks about is, it's wonderful to meditate and to get into that space, but then you must get up and be active towards that goal. That's what most people don't ever talk about.
We're changing our brain and body to live in that future present reality so that you feel connected to a future instead of the past. And when you're connected to the past, you're looking for it. And if you're looking for it, you're separate from it. If you're being it, then, then there's a complete change in energy. And nobody changes until they change their energy. And when you change your energy, you change your life. After 8,500 brain scans, I can tell you that you and I are at our absolute best when we get beyond ourselves. That is the elegant moment where we're free enough to create without any encumbrances.
So this has been measured too. So there's these different energy centers in the body. Is it true that if you're holding on to these other emotions, I just want a basic answer for this for the group too. If you're holding on to these negative emotions and you're not moving towards this more empowering emotion. What happens to these energy centers in the body? Can you describe that to some extent?
The majority of our thoughts and feelings are connected to our sexuality, to our victimization, our guilt, our suffering, our shame, our unworthiness, our self-doubt, or our importance, our control, our fear, our anger, our frustration, our hatred, our judgment. Those are the first three hormonal centers in the body. And those first three centers have everything to do with survival. And those centers are energy consumers. Orgasm, digestion, stress is a lot of energy that we're drawing from our very vital life force, our resource of light and information, and we're turning it into chemistry, and we're literally robbing the body's energy, right? So then living like that for the short term is okay, because the body can move back to homeostasis, it can restore itself, but when we're overdoing that consistently, then there's no energy for growth and repair, because you're living constantly in survival. So again, you can eat all the right food, you can do all the right things, but if you're living in anxiety and fear and you're viewing your world from the worst case scenario that could possibly happen, because that's what you do in survival, there's no energy for growth and repair. There's no energy for healing. So the majority of our thoughts are signaling certain circuits in the brain that signal another part of the brain, the limbic brain, to make what's called a neuropeptide. Neuropeptides are chemical messengers that signal hormonal centers. So now you're taking thought and you're storing it as energy in these energy centers. And if you're living in survival, why would you open your heart? I mean, it's just not a time to open your heart. I mean, if you're getting chased by T-Rex, it's not a time to meditate. It's not a time to learn. It's not a time to connect. It's not a time to communicate. It's not a time to sit down and go within. It's not a time to be vulnerable. It's time to run, fight, or hide. And so,
is that why we're this way? I've never asked you this before. Is this some? I don't think you believe this, but I just want to understand. Is this some sort of genetic disposition that's been passed down to us since we've been chased by T-Rex?
I think so. I think survival has been very adaptive.
Yeah.
Like, because if you're being chased by T-Rex, you don't run up to T-Rex and say, "Oh, cute little dinosaur, let me pet you." That's not adaptive. The fear is adaptive. You run from the unknown. You run from challenges, right? So if you're living in survival, there's better chances of surviving if you run from the unknown. And by the way, when you're living in survival, the infinite potentials in the quantum field, you'll select the worst case scenario in your mind. And you'll begin to emotionally prepare yourself for the worst case scenario, because you have better chances of surviving.
There you go.
If you prepare for the worst, right?
There you
so
go.
People spend their whole life thinking about the worst thing and emotionally embracing it. Well, you take a thought and emotion, or an image and an emotion, you're branding or conditioning your body into what? Anxiety, into fear. So then you keep doing that over and over again, the body becomes the mind of fear. And whether you think you can control it or not, you're going to have a panic attack. And the panic attack is the body saying, "You've conditioned me this way. Try as you may with your conscious mind to control it." You programmed it subconsciously. Then you start worrying about the next panic attack, and it's that very anticipation that keeps the person on the hamster wheel,
and robs them of all of this energy as well.
They're absolutely so they don't believe in possibility when they're living in that state, because in survival, it's not a time to create. All the blood flow is going to the hind brain and away from the forebrain. There's no physiology really for a person to begin to create a new future. So think about it. So then 70% of the time, people in the world are living anticipating the next moment based on their past moment. And so they're laying reality down moment by moment with the next known, the next predictable moment. And so the hormones of stress endorse the senses. Our senses become heightened when we're under stress, and we become materialists. We narrow our focus on the danger. So then you're focusing on matter. You're focusing on the material world. And when you do that, you put all your attention, the arousal of the stress hormones puts all your attention on your body. If you're being chased by T-Rex, you better be paying attention to your body. When people start reaching this moment, my goodness, they're overcoming themselves. And now they're at that perfect place to create. And my definition of creation is when I forget about myself. That's when you're free. So some people can do it because they've practiced it. Other people can't get beyond the addiction of a certain emotion. That means their body is still their mind. So then if you're sitting in a meditation and your body's throwing the kitchen sink at you and saying, "Ed, you're a loser, you're never going to change, this is too hard, why don't you quit?" And you're aware that that's your body doing that, and you say to your body, we're going to sit here and we're going to sit in this fire and I'm going to keep applying the formula, and your brain starts running to all the emails you have to do, and you become aware of that, and you return back to the present moment, and you tell the body it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind. Now your will is getting greater than that program, and there's a liberation of energy. And every time you do that, that's a victory. And you teach people.
Every time you do that, that's a victory.
That's
when
a
your
victory.
mind tells the body, I'm in charge.
When you say to your, when you want to get up and you want to quit, and you go, oh, no, that's my body, bring it back.
Okay.
And now you're taming the animal. The body is the animal, and you're like a dog. You sit. And if you keep doing this, you're climbing on top, and the body finally acquiesces. It finally says, I'm not going anywhere. And then boom, there's this liberation of energy. What's the side effect? Joy. Person's heart just automatically opens up, and every time they do that, those victories add up. There's no such thing as a bad meditation. There's only overcoming yourself. And when you sit in the fire and you work with that, people say to me, why do you meditate every morning? I say, because if I can overcome myself in the morning, the rest of my day is easy.
It's easy. Not true?
Because that's what it's about. You master yourself, you master your life.
Yes.
And so then all the chatter in your head that you listen to all day long, that is called the default mode network in the brain. Our research shows that shuts off. Not just shuts off during the meditation, it stays shut off for the rest of the day. So the critic in your head that's telling you this will never happen, you don't have enough time, there's no voice there. So you just have a clear flow on where you're going, and you trust yourself more.
Yes.
So then when you start practicing creating that brain and heart coherence, you can believe in a future that you can't see or experience with your senses yet, but you've thought about enough times in your mind that it's actually, there's physical evidence in your brain to look like it's already happened.
Man.
And you can begin to understand, you can select a new potential in the quantum field, and every day emotionally embrace that future reality to such a degree that your body begins to believe it's living in that future reality in the present moment, and you're signaling new genes and new ways to change your body to look like it's already happened. Now think about this. If there's physical evidence by thought alone in your brain and body to look like your wealth or your future has already happened, it's already happened.
It's already happened.
And you're already it. So it's not about your wealth. It's not about your health. It's not about your freedom. It's who you become. So then as you overcome, you become someone else. And so most people don't understand that that the truth is that every time you overcome yourself a little bit more, the side effect is that you love yourself a little bit more. And so now self-love is no longer about pleasure or having a car. It's something that you're cultivating within you. So then imagine, we have research to show, and this is such a duality, that when you start seeing the brain start synchronizing, getting coherent. The front of the brain and the back of the brain, the two hemispheres coming together, and we can say to scientists that come and study our work, oh, watch this, Ed's gonna pop. What do you mean? Just watch, this is gonna be good. And all of a sudden you see this brain going into this kind of psychic union, the heart blows wide open, you see coherence going on, and you'll look around at that person, and there's tears running down their face. Imagine feeling so whole that it's impossible to want. I mean, how can you want when you're whole? Because you feel like you already have it. Now, when you reach that point, that's when the magic happens, because now you are worthy to receive. And the universe only gives us what we think we're worthy of receiving.
Share this with them, please.
Yeah, I think, for me, I'm curious and I'm a pragmatist. I mean, if you tell me something, all I want to know is how I'm going to use it in my life. And I'm not into dinner conversation, because nobody changes from that. I'm a doer, and I want to be around doers. And
this is why you and I connect so well, I think.
And obviously, you get a group of people that are passionate about transformation, and they've done some of the work. When we were doing our 4.5-day advanced workshops, right around the end of the event, I was seeing people starting to seeing some really great transformations, and I thought,
this is the pop.
Yeah, it's a pop. I mean, big pops, and we were like, we had to send them home, and I was like, oh God, man, if I could just have them for a week. So we created these week-long events where people retreat from their lives, and They remove the constant stimulation in their external environment that reminds them of who they think they are as a personality. They separate themselves from the people they know and the places they go and the things that they do at a certain amount of time in their routine, mundane life. So we'll bridge a little quantum physics with a little neuroscience, a little endocrinology, a little epigenetics, psychoneuroimmunology. Those are all sciences about possibility. And I now know that if you can give people sound scientific information, and, you know, for me, that's the language.
I know.
And then if they can turn to the person next to them and explain it, you're not going to get off the hook. If you can't explain it, it's not wired in your brain. But if you can build a model and explain it, you're installing the neurological hardware in your brain in preparation for the experience. So the more you understand what you're doing and why, the how gets easier because you can assign meaning to it. So then if I can set up the conditions and the environment and give them the proper instructions and push the envelope a little bit. And people who get their behaviors to match their intentions and their actions equal to their thoughts, they get their mind and body working together, they're going to have a new experience. And the experience then is not only going to enrich the philosophical circuits in their brain, because experience does that, but it's going to produce an emotion. So they're going to start feeling more unlimited. They're going to start feeling more free. Now they're teaching their body chemically to understand what their mind is intellectually understood. So if you've done it once, you should be able to do it again.
You have the recipe, you have the formula.
So if you can repeat it, you will neurochemically condition your mind and body to begin to work as one. In other words, the body will start to learn how to do it as well as the mind, and you won't have to consciously think about it any longer. So it gets easier, right? So we follow that format, and the first couple days is that getting beyond your life, getting beyond your emotions. Everybody's got to do it, but if you just keep applying the formula, keep going, and I keep reminding you and keep building the model, I give them numerous opportunities to connect and numerous opportunities to overcome themselves. Sooner or later, you're just going to figure it out. It doesn't matter. You're just going to figure it out. And when you do, then we start seeing now these incredible transformations and changes. And it's like a 4-minute mile. Because I really think now, Ed, that evidence is the loudest voice. It is the loudest voice. And so we've got all the brain scans, we've got all the heart rate measurements, we got great measurements on immune regulation, how you can strengthen your immune system by thought alone. We have great measurements on that you could actually change your genes in 4 days, lengthen your telomeres, lengthen your life within 60 days, you know, change your neurotransmitters, change the energy around your body, the energy centers of your body, and change all this stuff. And so that's the scientific evidence, but the evidence of people now is really the laboratory. So then what's the side effect of a person then who begins to make significant changes in just mastering that formula? Well, the side effect is a remission from a health condition. So we have seen not once, not twice, more than twice, blind people. Like that one lady had a stroke on the optic nerve, a nurse from London, very smart lady, and the lesion was on the optic nerve, and it created a blind spot in her visual field from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. So she can't see anything there, and so she lost her license. She has her own company. She couldn't read emails, and sooner or later your brain accommodates a little bit, but not fully. And so the typical prognosis with a stroke when there's neurological damage is that if your brain doesn't recover within 2 weeks, it's going to stay. It's going to stay the same and slowly get worse. So she has great relationships with all the physicians, and they all said, yeah, you're going to have to learn to live with it. And believe it or not, one doctor said, hey, why don't you try going to this event? And this nurses are practical people. I mean, they're super practical people. And you want to get a good doctor, ask a nurse, right? And they're just very, very practical. So she did the online course, she did both the courses, she read all the books, she did all the meditations, and she came to the event with the intention of learning how to live with her condition. It didn't occur to her fully that she could heal it. And she went because she wanted to start a nonprofit to help people. So she went with a doctor that recommended the work, and just a certain point in the middle of the event, she was doing a walking meditation on the beach with 1,000 other people there, and it occurred to her that maybe she should think about healing her eyes. You know, so she went into the meditation in the same day, and she laid down after we finished the meditation, and she said it was like someone taking cellophane, crackling it in her head. She felt something going on inside her brain, and she was crying because she knew something spectacular was happening. And she didn't want to open her eyes, and then the meditation ended, and she said, when I opened my eyes, it was like I was seeing so much brighter. Wow. And she said, I could see no blind spot, and the doctor was laying right next to her, and she was sobbing, they were hugging each other. Gosh. And so she went on the Monday morning to get her eyes, the visual fields measured. And hopefully we'll get the image for you, but
sure.
You can see on the pre-measurement just a black, that quarter of the sphere,
the lesion
of the circle was just all black. In other words, blindness. You see the post-measurement on the Monday morning after the event. There isn't a black spot.
Unbelievable. Complete
restoration of sight. Now, if you ask me if that was possible, 2 years ago, I would say, yeah, it's possible theoretically. But now, like, this is the 4-minute mile. Then we have another lady that was blind from birth, 5% vision, and again, she had an amazing experience with our coherence healing. We teach people how to heal. When she opened her eyes, she could see faces for the first time.
Unbelievable.
And in fact, they had these 2 big bouquets on the stage, really big, beautiful flowers. And she had 5% vision, so she could just see a little bit of light. And she thought they were 2 guards, 2 bodyguards on the stage guarding me the whole event. And when she sat up, she could see flowers. Or you see the nurse tell her story, or the lady who's allergic to everything at the same event, who's wearing a mask with the filters and the whole bit, that had anaphylactic shock every day of her life. By the second day, she's on the floor with her mask off, dancing around. That person sits down after they witness that. When they close their eyes and they do their next meditation, their acceptance, their belief, and their ability to surrender and trust that it could happen to them becomes greater. What I want our community to do is say, what is standing in the way between me and my ability to connect to that field? Because I want to eliminate every belief, every emotion, every past, whatever. I want to remove all of those veils. Why am I doing this? Because I want to get so good at this. We have some MIT researchers that are going to organize all the data. 50%. I want to get to 50%, and then we are going to walk into children's hospitals and we're going to say, what kids, just give us your kids. We won't touch them, we don't want any money, all we want to do is help. And I think that is...
that's amazing.
That's a living organism called the human beings. The living organism, the human being, the age of selfish individuality has to end right now. The living organism has to take care of one another. They have to heal one another. They have to teach one another. They have to exchange important information amongst one another. They have to shine for one another, not to be outstanding and competitive, but to show others that they can shine. That's the only way we're going to make our way out of this mess.
Oh my gosh. My favorite things that I've ever had said here, just so you know. Because the application of this is beyond just someone going from 5% vision to 95% vision. The application of this in humanity and consciousness, as you've just described there at the end, is what really I'm hearing and seeing all of that. That's what fascinates me. And I must say to you that we all agree that certainly our thoughts can make us unhealthy. So if that is true, there's got to be a way that the mind and the heart can be able to heal the body as well. And I'm fascinated by the study of epigenetics, and what you've just covered here it's a whole new level. I love what you said. We've poked a hole. It's the 4-minute mile. But
the reason it's the 4-minute mile is because once the 4-minute mile was broken, 2 weeks later, everybody was breaking it because it was a new belief,
it's
a new level of consciousness.
Yep.
So the evidence of all these amazing healings, and not only just healings, people are creating new jobs, new opportunities, new relationships, new mystical experiences that transcend language, where you just can't be Ed anymore. You know too much after that. That's the unknown, right? So in order for you to really begin to explore the unknown aspect of yourself, you got to learn how to get beyond the known aspect of yourself. And if you keep coming back to the known, you're going to miss out on the unknown. So you would say, well, I don't know anything in the unknown. Of course, it's the unknown. And if you try to control it there, you're back to the known. If you try to predict it, you're back to the known. So you got to go through this trial and error of just kind of refining your attention, refining your ability, and it's just got to be something like playing tennis or playing golf or doing martial arts or working out or crocheting or dancing the salsa. You just got to keep going, man. In the beginning, it's tedious, and then when you start finding your groove, like our community, they don't miss their morning meditations. You know why? Because the magic is happening, and they know if they miss it, they're gonna cut off from the magic. So they, whether they're tired, whether they're hungover, whether they're in. You know, and if you wake up in the morning and you can't get your butt out of bed, you know what that means? It just means you can predict the feeling of everything that's going to happen in your life, and the body's resigned.
The body's
resigned. So then, you know, when you went on a school trip when you were a kid, you know, you woke up before your parents because you knew something new was going to happen. That's the body going, wake up.
Wake up.
It's something unexpected is going to happen. What happened to us, right?
Christmas Day.
Yeah. So why not, you know, put in your time, and then measure the effects of you at cause. I mean, become the scientist in your life and really start to experiment with it. Okay, let me change my energy. Let me just write down 4 thoughts that, like, it's too hard, I'll start tomorrow, this doesn't feel right, whatever it is. It's this person's fault. Just write those down and say, these thoughts, like Gandalf on the bridge. You may not pass today. This is the end. So then if you become conscious of those thoughts, now you're the governor of your thoughts. What actions, what behaviors do you want to change? Do you complain? Do you blame? Do you judge? Do you make excuses? How do you talk? Do you speak limited? Just pick 4 things that you're not going to do any longer. What emotions get you in trouble? What are the emotions
that you're addicted to too, right?
That you're addicted to that keep you returning back to your past. And if you don't know, close your eyes for about 30 minutes and just watch where your mind goes and watch your feelings and just say, okay, it's frustration, it's unworthiness, it's self-doubt, it's guilt, it's frustration, it's shame. Just become conscious of those and just review them in your mind so that you don't go unconscious them in your waking day.
It's so powerful because, by the way, everyone that's listening to this is so awesome, because if you've been listening to my content for the last 3 or 4 months, we've been laying this foundation, and now I just bring you this master that takes it to a master class level and explains to you the scientific reasons that these things work. But I want to jump back in with you here on something, because I just want to do a couple basic application things for everyone here. These emotions that our body gets addicted to. There's a power, everyone, because I've experienced this in my own life. Everything that Joe's explaining here, other than healing my own body, I've watched them happen in my life from the standpoint of becoming something, and then these things are in my life rather than me sort of forcing them to happen. I mean, most people that have had any great things happen in life can define at least moments of their life where this is just a known truth. Dr. Joe talks so eloquently about the fact that, you know, about this epigenetics concept is fascinating me, but at the same time, you talk eloquently about only about 1% of us are predisposed to most of these negative ailments in our lives in the first place anyways. This is a misnomer.
So you use the word, and this thinking that you just said is contrarian thinking. Okay, it's contrary to culture. It's contrary to popular opinion. To start the agency was a contrarian move. You actually have that as part of the work in the book called Be Contrarian. Does that mean don't always participate in group think like everybody does it and be constantly innovating? Because you also talk about that in the book too.
I think that's exactly what that means. You know, it's think on you. It's think. You know, don't follow. I remember, you know, another thing that my grandfather and my father always used to say to me. They used to say, when everybody's buying, you sell. When everybody's selling, you buy.
Interesting.
Right? Like that's what a contrarian is.
I do that, by the way. I just put a post out about this, Mo, the other day. I'm like, when everyone is thinking one way, I try to always think the other. When they're all going one direction, no one makes money in the pack. Nobody gains market share in the pack. Nobody gains a great life in the pack. And
I mean, it's like what we're dealing with right now, the First Republic Bank, right? Like, is it the time to buy?
Right.
It's down 85%. Right? I mean,
it's a good bank. I got to be careful. It's supposedly a pretty good bank. I'm debating the same thing myself. I'm like, I kind of get what's happening, but man,
that's contrarian thinking, right? Like you're not following everybody. You know, by the way, I'm not telling anybody here to go buy.
100%, not at all. I should amend that good bank thing. It's a bank. I'll just leave it at that. It's a bank. I don't know if it's a good bank or not.
Right.
I got to be really, really careful about that. Do you think? By the way, I'm loving our conversation. It's really cool for me to have like this part of my friend that I see like revealed to me in detail, like the science behind the art, because I've always admired the things that you do and how you go about doing them, but now I understand the processes to which you do them. I want to go all the way back for a minute because it's one of my favorite stories in the book, because you just said it. I think a lot of people that get into sales don't realize you are self-employed, but you have to operate like you own your own business. You have to think like an entrepreneur. A lot of people do this. They have a full-time job. They work like 12, 14 hours a day. All of a sudden, they get to be an independent contractor, have a job, and they think they're on vacation. They work 2-3 hours a day. I'm like, no, when you do that, you actually have 5 jobs. You have 11 jobs. It's going to require more work, sheer momentum to get it off the ground. And you kind of caught that entrepreneurial bug, you call it in the book, young, with this thing with your dad, right? This story. And I think this is illustrative of thinking like an entrepreneur. And it's one of my favorite stories in the entire book because it explains you to me and it explains a lot of your success to me. So tell us that.
Another recession, my father came up to me and he said, Mauricio, it's time to either, work or go to school, but, I'm not going to pay for you to be a dumbass anymore and, just pretend you're going to school, right? And I literally said to my dad, I go, give me a couple of days and I'll get back to you and, let you know what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And he was supportive of me going to school if I was going to go to school, right? I wasn't supportive of me going to school if I was, going to go to the bars.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I got back and I said, Dad, I'm going to come work for you. And, he just taught me so many things, man. He taught me the value of the penny, right? Which is in my book, and you guys will love that. It's a great story. It really just makes everything so real. And it just teaches, it helps you teach your kids, how to save. It helps you teach yourself how to save and how to, understand that value because, I always tell everybody there's 100 pennies in a dollar, right? The day you can figure out how to give me 102, I'm in. I'm your partner.
Yeah. It says that in the book. Yep.
Right? So, we go through that whole process and he teaches me how to fight for cents, literally. Like I would, I'd come back and I'd be like, Dad, I sold, 100,000 yards for 97 cents. And he'd be like, yeah, go back and give me 99 cents. I'm like, really? Like,
Yep.
And yeah, you start adding that up and it adds up to a lot of money.
Yep.
Right. But then eventually it's like, you're in sales, you're creating your own momentum, you're creating your own things, you get that entrepreneur bug, and I ended up meeting, somebody that we sold fabric to that was struggling and I loved their brand. It was 90265. It was a clothing line. The guy was awesome. His name's Bron Roylands. He started the company. Really brilliant guy. He was actually a makeup artist. He used to do all the makeup artists for Justine Bateman and Woody Harrelson.
Oh, really?
And he had all these amazing people that were his people. And But they didn't have credit. It was a startup, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sitting there in front of these guys, and I'm thinking to myself, well, these are the fabrics I sell. Like I've got all of this shit, sitting in my warehouse. Right? Yeah. So now you start thinking as an entrepreneur, and you start taking your salesman job into this next piece, which is like, how do I build a business, right? Mm-hmm. And so from there, we built a business, right? And we built something else, So
and there was an exit out of it too, right?
And there was an exit. We sold it. It was not a profitable exit for me. Mm-hmm. It was more of an exit that got me out. And I paid all my debt, and I paid all my people, and I walked away with it. Yeah. But yeah, but it was a great learning lesson.
What is let's talk about your public you for a minute. What has that been like for you to go from a guy who's, a guy working every single day to now there's this unprecedented notoriety in your life, right? Like Kyle's the most well-known housewife, I think is probably to say on the,
I would say by far,
and the most well-known franchise. And then obviously that's transcended over and doesn't hurt you in building your brand either. But I wonder what impact that's made on you, your family, your life, the good and the bad of it. What comes with that?
There's both. There's tremendous sacrifices that are made.
What?
And there's obviously the good, right? The sacrifices are, is it nice to be able to go in and call and get a reservation at, a restaurant that most people can't, get a reservation? Yeah, it's great. Mm-hmm. But now you walk in and, there's also 1,000 cameras on you, right? Yeah. And you're in the public eye, and people are, talking about you and making stuff up about you and all kinds of different, things, It's like, having, to me, that was definitely a sacrifice I made. That the privacy of life, the being, just being private, being, and I don't know how else to say it. It's like literally just being private.
Yeah,
right?
I know what you mean.
It's amazing, right? And and so many people want to be publicly known, and they want the notoriety and they want the celebrity status and all of those things. But people don't realize what a huge sacrifice comes with that. And it's not necessarily bad. It also brings money.
Right. The benefits of building a brand, all those other things. Right?
I have made it very clear. And if it wasn't for the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, if it wasn't for television, if it was, I think we would have still grown. I think we'd still have an amazing business, right? Because before I ever got on television, I was already the #1 agent in California. But there was no way I would have built the business I had as fast as I have without television.
And you talk about that. So building a network and building a brand. Maybe you're not going to be on the Real Housewives of whatever, but I think business has become not just about who you know anymore, but about who knows you. And that's why social media does matter, and why building a brand for any entrepreneur out there, I believe there's value to. Do you agree with that?
100%. And you nailed it. You don't need television to build the brand.
Right.
I mean, let's be clear. It certainly helps. Right. It gets it out there, but not everybody. There's not 10 million shows
seats.
or
Right.
100 million
Exactly.
shows. Right. There's only so many seats out there, as you said. And but but I've seen amazing brands built. By with other methodologies.
Yeah, but by building social media, by building referral bases, but you talk about that and having a network, because you also say in the book, and I just think this is brilliant stuff. This is just stuff people don't do in friendships. Like one thing I try to do even with you or other friends of mine, just time to time, I just go, hey man, I'm thinking about you. I love you. You okay? You need anything, right? And there's a principle of this in the book for business too. I want you to stay on this point, which is to stay in touch, because most people in sales or in their career think that they're building for just this year. They don't think that they're building a company. So you're planting seeds often right now that you won't even harvest to get a client or referral 3, 4, 5 years from now. So talk about that.
100%. And it's so important. I have approximately 2,000 salespeople that work for me right now. And I get to see the way they act all the time, right? You see the guy that makes the $5 million sale, they make $100,000, and they're off to Cabo.
Yes.
Boom.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Dang it. Yes.
Bye.
Yes.
Where are you going? I'm off to Cabo.
Yep.
I'm like, dude,
yes.
You finally made some money. Okay.
Keep the momentum going.
Get it going on.
Right.
And then it's I'll use me, right, as a real concrete situation. I sell the Playboy Mansion, $100 million deal, right? Multi-million-dollar commission. Yep. I'm in the next day in the office, and 5 people come up to me. 5 of my salesmen come up to me. They're like, "Congratulations, but what are you doing here?" Right. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, where else would I be? I mean, they're like, "Well, why aren't you on vacation?" I'm like, "Because this deal ended. What's next? I can't re-bring this deal back, right? It's gone. It's not gonna. So what am I tomorrow? What am I 3 months from now? What am I 7 months from now? Right? Yes. And as soon as that ends, it ends.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's what people don't understand. So when you're planting those seeds, when you're staying in touch, you're staying in touch for the future.
Yes.
For the next thing.
Yes.
Right?
Why is it that people don't get this?
It's unbelievable
it's
to
the
me.
big separator. Now we're going into it, guys. This is a big old separator. Here's what I think happens. You actually say it in the book. That's why, I told you said, "Did you get my book?" I said, "Dude, I read it this weekend. I read your entire book in 2 days. And I know you. So I know a lot of the stories in the book, right? But it's this good." So I'm like, yes, damn it, scream this. And one of the things you say is don't believe your press clippings. Don't believe the hype about you. Here's what happens to most people. They get a little bit of success and then they start believing the crap about them. Oh, I can do this whenever I want, or this is, this is probably because I don't think you do it the way I do it, but I play a little scared. I don't, you're so confident, I don't think you have, but it's similar. I play a little scared. When I get a good deal or something good's happened, I've had an exit, or, this show's doing really well. I'm like, okay, I got to do something to keep it going or do it better. I don't go, yay, I'm the greatest podcast host in the world. It'll just grow on its own now.
Yeah.
But that's what you must see your salespeople all the time. They believe the hype, or even recognition. I was at your event. I was the speaker at your event. The best thing you do in your culture is how much you love on your people and they have a good time and you recognize them. I do that really well in my companies too. It's a double-edged sword sometimes though. Because one, you're saying you're amazing, you're great. And a lot of people are like, yeah, I sure am. I'm going to celebrate. And they live off last year's production or award for the next 2 years. Then they wake up, they're like, wow, I can't get a deal done. I lost my mojo. Because they believe the hype.
Yep. The seeds you plant today are for tomorrow, not for today, right? And it's you're so right, Ed. And one of the things that I just keep thinking about is, you and I are so similar in different ways.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Similar and different.
Yep.
But, when you and I, you invited me to play the member guest at, the Madison, and you and I are just these competitive son of a guns, right? Like,
We didn't win, by the way.
we didn't win. That damn ball, that last putt just hit the pin.
Cup. Dang it. I'm still pissed. Anyway.
But it was and then golf is a game of life. We always talk about it, right?
Yeah.
But you and I are in there, and we're like, when I'm hitting a bad shot, like you're making me feel like it's okay to hit the bad shot, and when you're hitting, and when you're not, super on, I'm making you feel like, and I'm pumping you up because I know how good you're going to hit that next shot, and you're pumping me up because you know how that, and it's that whole thing, right?
Yep.
That's what we have to do with our people.
Yes, exactly.
Right? That is the life that we have to create.
Are you good at
for all
that?
these
Like
people.
making people feel good about themselves, making them feel that you believe in them, you pour belief into them?
I think I'm pretty good at that. I think that's one of those things that we can always be better and can always continue to work on because, it goes back to time and it goes back to the balance of time. Like I could be great at it, but if I don't have time and I don't put the effort, I suck.
Yeah, the other thing you're good at doing is, by the way, guys, we're covering a lot of stuff in a short window here. I'm loving this conversation. But the other thing you do is you have surrounded yourself with people who are good at the stuff you aren't good at doing.
One of the most important things to do.
Yeah, so talk about that a little bit because I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs do it. They're like, I'm going to do everything. They micromanage every single little thing, or they deplete their energy doing stuff they're not really that good at and don't have a proclivity for, and then they don't have the energy and juice to go do the things that really move the needle in their business. You are really good at moving the needle in your business because you don't deplete your energy most of the time doing stuff you're not good at or don't enjoy.
I think one of the most important traits that a person can have, a business person, a person in anything, is being able to really self-analyze
Yes.
your strengths and weaknesses, and not trick yourself that you have strengths where you have weaknesses, and not because most people they trick themselves. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes I see in people is that they trick themselves. They think they're good. They pretend they're good at something, or they think they're good at something that they kind of suck at.
Yes.
Okay, and being able to be self-analytical and understand your weaknesses is probably the most important thing because then you can hire to your weaknesses.
Yes.
Right, and I hire to my weaknesses, and I also hire what I think is amazing brains that don't necessarily think like me. I don't need another human being next to me that thinks exactly the way I think so that we could be all day long, hey, bud, aren't we great? We're the best. Yeah, let's do it red. Yeah, red. Right? I need somebody like, no, I want blue. Like, that's not red. And why? Right? Now I need the brain. Why do you want blue? Okay, now I might be the boss. I might end up picking red, but I want to hear every damn reason you want blue. Okay, and then it's up to me whether I pick it or not. Right, but I want to hear it.
This is two things we have in common. If I was to say there's a trait that you and I really, really share in common that we do well. By the way, we both have things we don't do very well. But what we do, like that, golf sometimes. But actually, what we both do well is we ended up in our lives becoming self-aware enough to know the things we were good at, and we've spent most of our business lives and personal lives playing to those strengths, and that's why we're relatively young men that have had some real success, because I haven't wasted a bunch of time trying to get really good at things I'm just not good at doing. And the other thing that we have in common, you're really good at that, Mo. The other thing we have in common is that I don't have to be right all the time. If someone is smarter than me in a meeting or a decision, I will defer. My ego can get too big, I'm sure, but it's not too big. Doing it right is better than it being my idea in business all the time. And I think you're really, really good at that too.
And by the way, not being right all the time is potentially even more important in your relationships.
How do you mean?
Boyfriend, wife, girlfriend. You don't. I see so many friends of mine, and they fight with their wives, they fight with their husbands, they fight with their boyfriend, girlfriend, and they're really fighting just because they need to be right. Right? If you can learn that you just don't always have to be right, it could go a long way in your relationship.
Really, really true. I do that with Christiana a lot of the times. I'll say, hey, listen, I don't need to win this.
Right.
This is not about me winning and you losing, or me right and you wrong. Sometimes it's just like we can even agree to disagree, or I'll just take your idea and we'll go with it a lot of the time, because life's pretty damn short. At the end of your life, you're like, man, I won 11 of 12 fights with my wife. Yeah. There's the scoreboard doesn't matter in this stuff at all, yet we do it. By the way, we do it even in negotiations and deals too.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had that even in escrows where they're going the wrong way. You're like, no, I'm right.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter if you're right. What matters is the deal gets closed, right?
Yeah.
And you got to be able to defer when you do it.
Yeah.
You've had a glimpse into the most financially successful people in the world and famous people in the world. Let us in a little bit. Tell us whether or not those people are any happier than, like, say, your mom and dad when you were growing up, or people that you and I both know that don't have financial means or success. Do you see any correlation in are they happier, less happy, more stress, less stress?
That is a great question, and it's there's no straight up answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that successful people have an easier time. They have the means to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make them happy. Okay. Right? Your mindset, your life, your way of being, the way you look at life, that makes you happy. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But having the money and having success and having, a beautiful house and ability to jump your plane, all of that stuff, it makes it probably a little easier to set your mindset up, right? You also probably have the ability, if you have money, to have coaches that can coach you in mindset. They have the ability to have, to hire, people to help you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where if you don't have that,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't make you unhappy. But you just have less means to you have to work harder yourself.
Yeah.
By the same token, you have less distractions. So there are a lot of people that can, love to go, and by the way, what does that money mean, right? Like, to somebody with, a $350,000 job, right? Like, that could be, that's money, right?
Sure.
They don't need to have $10 million, okay? They can live great on that, have a simple life, have a nice, and be super happy, surf every morning.
Yep.
Right?
You and I have friends that are doing just that. Yep.
And they're super duper happy, right? So to me, suffering is hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Having a job, you could be happy at any stage. But you can be unhappy at any stage. I have seen some really miserable billionaires, really miserable billionaires, that have absolutely everything and have absolutely nothing going on in their life. Okay? Yeah. And I have seen some valet parkers that are thrilled to be alive.
You're right. Yeah. It's interesting that today, when we're recording this, I just had this show come out with this study that was done at Harvard. It's an 85-year-long study, dude, and they studied 2,000 young men. 1,000 of them were Harvard sophomores from probably pretty privileged backgrounds, wealth, abundance, most of them, and then another 1,000 of boys from like broken, underprivileged families in Boston, poverty. They studied them their entire life, like everything about them, not just like surveys, like in-home meetings, brain scans, MRIs, talk with their kids. And there is a correlation to exactly what you just said, which is that there's no correlation between massive wealth and happiness, but there is a correlation if you can't have your needs met. If you can't meet your needs and pay your bills and eat decently and have a nice place to live and take care of your family in need and emergencies, that suffering does cause a lack of happiness. But the massive abundance doesn't necessarily do it. So what you've seen in your laboratory of your life is really true. How about this? Any through lines on financially successful people? Because it's really hard for me. I'll meet somebody that's like, man, what does that guy have in common with that lady who's also wealthy? And I've had a hard time like taking away, like, what do they have in common? I think what I've seen is there's a level of confidence in their chosen craft that might separate them. But has there been a difference that you've observed in financially abundant people, a through line with them in personality traits or behaviors they have that help them generate that wealth as opposed to those that don't?
100%. And let's throw away the Lucky Sperm Club, right? Let's throw away the inheritance money, right? And let's just talk about the wealthy, people that have self-made.
Okay.
Right. To me, there's a couple of characteristic traits that are there, that make them, that are core traits. Competitive.
Yes.
Needing to win. Right. Like that to me is a great trait that is a common trait amongst people. There's one trait that I've seen a lot of wealthy, successful people that I happen to think is a bad trait. Okay. Greed.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And let's just start with those two, right? There's a lot of greedy, wealthy people out there, and they're greedy because they need a lot of money, and they just want money, and they want money, and they want money. They keep bringing it in, right? But their decisions that they make in life are made from greed, and therefore, the people that work for greedy people are generally not as happy as people that work for competitive people.
Really true. Man, very true.
Right?
Yeah.
It could be a huge company. They could be kicking some ass. They could be making all the money in the world, but all their employees have a terrible culture. They have a terrible, they hate it, right? Like they're making money, but they're not happy people.
You're
right? Or you can work at a company where the culture is amazing, and you're the head guys. So to me, those are two traits that and the other trait that makes that seems to be a common trait, and you said it, and you said it, and I have it, is fear.
You do have it too.
I definitely have it.
Okay.
I meant to go back to that.
Okay.
That fear is a very common trait. The fear of having a house over your head.
Yeah.
The fear of being able to provide for your family and your kids. The fear of putting food on the table the next day. The fear, like all of that, right? And particularly if you've had it and lost it.
Yes.
Right. You've had the bankruptcy. You've had the whole thing, and then you rebuild again, and then it's like, and when you're an entrepreneur, you put everything at risk, because that's what an entrepreneur does, right? And so there's the ups and there's downs and there's that, but that's the commonality that just continues to bring you back, right? And then hopefully keeping it.
Okay, that surprises me about you, because I'm a very fear-driven person. I've leveraged fear all of my life. I mean, I think the way I got wealthy was I don't even know that I wanted to be wealthy. I think I was afraid of being poor.
Yeah.
And then even at this stage, I still leverage fear on myself pretty regularly. But I think you can almost see that on me. I'm a pretty intense, wound up dude a lot of the time. Whereas you, it seems like it's bubble gums and rainbows most of the time when I'm around you, because you're so positive. Even this story you tell in the book where you come home and Kyle says, "How was your day?" And you're like, "It was the greatest day of my life."
Yeah.
And so there's this mindset of yours. So how do you nuance that duality of staying super positive? Because this is really profound stuff that you're saying right here that only really, Mo, like I think the thing I admire about you is there's a level of genius with so much humility that you're unaware of your genius. Like, I actually am not totally sure you know every reason why you've been successful, because you have so much humility for a dude with such genius. So how do you know how you nuance, like, living in some fear, leveraging it, but at the same time, you're a really positive, optimistic person?
100%. I'm extremely optimistic, super positive guy.
Yeah.
But I can also tell you, I had kids, very young, right? When I married Kyle and I met Kyle, I already had a 5-year-old daughter, right? And I was 25 years old. I had Alexia at 26. I had Farah, so I had 3 kids before I was 30, okay? And I can tell you that I definitely have kind of that old world lifestyle where I'm a man and I need to provide for my family, and I need to I am the provider, even though I wanted to make sure Kyle that made every decision in her life, right? I never wanted to hold her back. If she made money, if she did stuff, like that was just extra, right? Like that was great, right? But I never wanted to have that be her pressure. I needed to be the provider. And so because I was so young with kids, I definitely, and again, I was borrowing money from my grandfather, from Kyle's mom, from my father, in order to keep a roof over my head, right? And in order to keep a roof over my kids' heads, and to give them, a perceived good life, so that I can, make them feel confident and all of that stuff. And so because of that, and I developed a fear of losing, which also, despite all the risks I've taken, despite all the things I've done, I can tell you that I've been so conservative on so many investments that I've probably have left a lot of money on the table. Okay,
Me too.
because I haven't been willing to take that risk. So I have that fear.
Me too.
I'm just a positive son of a gun.
Me too. No, by the way, me too. By the way, I think sometimes guys like us are the ones that remain wealthy, though, when they get there. And I have that risk aversion, too. It's so interesting how similar we are on this stuff. Now, you said a good life. We don't have that much more time. One of my favorite conversations ever is today. Because I get to see this side of you that I know, but it's being revealed. And then the rest of the world figures out, oh, that's how this dude did this. That's how I could do it. And success leaves clues. And Mo wrote a lot of the clues in this book of how to become successful.